The lecture hall smelled like recycled air and nervous ambition. 217 cadets sat in rigid formation, their uniforms crisp, their spines straight, their eyes fixed forward on Commander Vex as he droned on about tactical formations and zero-gravity combat. The overhead lights hummed with that particular frequency that made your teeth ache if you paid attention to it. Nobody paid attention to it. They were too busy trying not to mess up, trying not to be noticed, trying not to become the example that Vex loved to make out of overconfident first years. In the third row, 17 seats from the left, sat Mira Chen. She looked exactly like every other cadet. Same gray uniform, same regulation haircut, though hers was slightly longer. Dark hair pulled into a neat bun at the base of her skull. Same datapad balanced on her knee. Same expression of intense concentration that was really just intense effort not to fall asleep. But standing behind her, arms crossed over a chest that could probably stop plasma fire, was Kade. Kade was not standard issue. He was 2 meters of walking violence wrapped in matte black armor that seemed to drink in the light rather than reflect it. His helmet sat maglocked to his hip, revealing a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by someone who was really angry at granite. Scars traced pale lines across dark skin. His eyes, cold gray like a winter storm, swept the room constantly, cataloging threats, calculating angles, measuring distances to every exit. Nobody looked at Mira. Everyone looked at Kade. Commander Vex paused mid-sentence, his pointer hovering over a holographic display of a destroyed frigate. "Something you need, Watchdog?" That was what they called him. Watchdog. Because he followed Mira Chen everywhere like she was made of something precious, and the universe was made of things that wanted to break precious things. Kade did not respond. His expression suggested that Commander Vex ranked somewhere below athlete's foot on his list of concerns. Vex's jaw tightened. He was used to authority. He wore it like cologne, thick enough to choke on. But Kade answered to a different chain of command. One that apparently started somewhere so far above Vex that orders filtered down like sunlight through deep water, weak and distant. "As I was saying," Vex continued, his voice sharp with irritation, "the Battle of Creche Minor demonstrates the importance of maintaining formation integrity even when," Mira raised her hand. The room temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees. Vex stopped talking. His eyes, narrow and calculating, fixed on her. "Yes, Cadet Chen?" "Sir, with respect, the Battle of Creche Minor is a terrible example of formation integrity." Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic, but it carried in the sudden silence. "The 7th Fleet maintained formation right up until the moment the Vurex torpedoes turned them into an expensive debris field. If Commander Walsh had broken formation and scattered his ships, casualty estimates suggest he could have saved 60% of his force. You could have heard a pin drop. You could have heard a thought drop." Vex's face went through an interesting color progression, from pink to red to something approaching purple. "Cadet Chen, are you suggesting that a decorated commander with 30 years of service made the wrong tactical decision?" "I am suggesting that 30 years of service does not grant immunity from being wrong, sir." Mira's tone remained respectful, but there was something else underneath it. Something that sounded like barely contained amusement. "The Vrex do not care about our traditions. They care about killing us efficiently. Formation integrity is a beautiful theory that makes excellent corpses." Behind her, Kade's mouth twitched. It was not quite a smile. It was more like the ghost of something that might have been a smile in another life. Vex set down his pointer with exaggerated care. "Stand up, Cadet Chen." Mira stood. She was small, barely regulation height, and standing next to Kade she looked like a child next to a siege tower. But there was something in the way she held herself, in the set of her shoulders, that suggested she was not particularly concerned about what Commander Vex thought. "You think you know better than Commander Walsh? You think you understand tactics better than officers who have actually fought in real battles, shed real blood, watched real comrades die?" "I think," Mira said carefully, "that Commander Walsh fought brilliantly in 17 engagements before Creche Minor. I think his tactics were adapted perfectly for fighting the Korath Rebellion. I think the Vrex are not the Korath Rebellion. I think he applied old solutions to new problems. I think he died because of it, along with 18,000 personnel under his command." "Sir." The silence was not just uncomfortable now, it was suffocating. A cadet in the front row, some kid with a face like uncooked dough, raised his hand nervously. "Commander Vex, is Cadet Chen, is she allowed to talk like that?" Vex smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that preceded paperwork and push-ups and latrine duty. "That depends, Cadet Chen. Perhaps you would like to enlighten us with your vast combat experience? Tell us about all the battles you have won, All the impossible decisions you have made under fire. Mira opened her mouth. Kade spoke first. His voice was like gravel being dragged over concrete, rough and low and somehow both quiet and completely impossible to ignore. She has made plenty of impossible decisions. Every head turned. Kade did not usually speak. He stood, he watched. He radiated menace like other people radiated body heat. But he did not engage, did not participate, did not acknowledge the existence of anyone except Mira and potential threats to Mira, which in his worldview seemed to include basically everything. Vex recovered first. Excuse me? You asked about her combat experience. She has plenty. Kade's gray eyes fixed on Vex with the intensity of targeting lasers. More than you. More than anyone in this room. More than everyone in this room combined. That is absurd. She is a first-year cadet. She is barely 18. She is 19, Kade corrected, his tone suggesting that getting basic facts wrong was a personal failing, and age is a poor metric for measuring what someone has survived. Mira put a hand on Kade's armored forearm. It should have looked ridiculous, like a sparrow trying to restrain a tank. Instead, Kade immediately fell silent, though his expression remained locked on Vex like a weapon waiting for the firing solution. Commander Vex, Mira said, and now her voice was tired in a way that had nothing to do with the late hour or the boring lecture. I apologize if my comments were inappropriate. I was simply engaging with the material as presented. I will keep my observations to myself in the future. Vex looked like he wanted to press the issue, wanted to reassert his authority, wanted to make an example that would echo through the academy for semesters to come. But his eyes kept flicking to Kade, and whatever he saw there convinced him that discretion was the better part of not getting turned into a grease stain. See that you do. Cadet, dismissed, all of you. The room emptied in a controlled flood of relief and gossip. Cadets streamed out in clusters, their voices rising the moment they cleared the doorway. Speculation and rumor spreading like wildfire in a dry forest. Mira gathered her datapad slowly, methodically, like she was in no particular hurry to go anywhere. Kade waited, patient as stone, his eyes tracking the last few cadets as they filed out. When they were alone, Mira looked up at him. You did not have to do that? Yes, I did. Vex will report this. Someone will ask questions. Let them ask. Kade's expression softened slightly, which for him meant he looked marginally less likely to commit casual violence. You were right. Walsh was a fool. Traditions are not tactics. Being right does not make friends. You do not need friends, Kade said flatly. You have me. Despite everything, despite the weight that seemed to press down on her shoulders like atmospheric pressure, Mira smiled. It was small and sad and genuine. Lucky me. They walked out together, Mira in front, Kade 3 steps behind and 1 to the left, positioned perfectly to intercept anything coming from any angle. Other cadets gave them a wide berth in the corridors, pressing against walls, conversations dying as they passed. Nobody knew who Mira Chen really was, but they knew Kade guarded her, and that meant she was either very important or very dangerous, and nobody wanted to find out which. The truth was simpler and more complicated than any of them could imagine. 3 years ago, Mira Chen had been someone else. She had been part of something else. She had been in a place where decisions were not theoretical exercises debated in lecture halls, but instantaneous calculations made while people screamed and bled and died around you. 3 years ago, she had made a choice that saved 40,000 lives and destroyed everything else. 3 years ago, she had earned the loyalty of the Apex Warrior, the single most dangerous human being to survive the Vrex incursion. 3 years ago, she had been court-martialed, cleared, decorated, and quietly buried under a new identity because some heroes are too complicated to celebrate and too valuable to waste. Now she sat in lecture halls and listened to mediocre officers teach outdated tactics to children playing soldier. Now, Kade stood watch, waiting for the universe to try again. Because it would try again. The universe was not done with Mira Chen. And when it came for her, when the peace shattered and the screaming started and the real war returned, everyone would finally understand why the Apex Warrior guarded a quiet girl who sat in the 3rd row and corrected her instructors. They would understand that monsters sometimes wear the faces of teenage girls, and the things that guard monsters are something else entire. The attack came on a Tuesday. Tuesdays were hand-to-hand combat training, which meant Mira spent 3 hours getting thrown around a padded mat by Instructor Reeves, who was built like a refrigerator and had the personality of one. Kade watched from the corner, arms crossed, expression unreadable. radiating disapproval at the entire concept of people putting hands on Mira, even in a controlled training environment. Again, Reeves barked, circling Mira like a predator, deciding which limb to bite first. You telegraph every move. Your stance is sloppy. Your balance is terrible. In real combat, you would be dead 6 times over. Mira wiped sweat from her forehead and reset her stance. Her muscles ached. Her ribs hurt from where she had landed poorly during the last throw. But she set her feet, centered her weight, and raised her hands. Reeves came in fast, a blur of controlled aggression, his massive hand reaching for her collar. Mira moved. Not like a cadet. Not like someone learning from manuals and training simulations. Like someone who had learned in environments where mistakes became obituaries. Her weight shifted forward instead of back. Her left hand trapped his wrist while her right struck his elbow joint, not hard but precisely, hitting the nerve cluster that made his entire arm go momentarily numb. She pivoted inside his guard, used his own momentum against him, and suddenly 200 pounds of instructor was airborne, spinning, crashing down onto the mat with a sound like a small building collapsing. Silence. Reeves lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, his expression cycling through confusion, surprise, and something that might have been respect. What in the hell was that? Mira offered him a hand up. Sloppy balance, sir. Telegraphed my moves. In real combat, I would have been dead 6 times over. Reeves took her hand, pulled himself up, and actually laughed. It was a sound like rocks tumbling in a dryer. Smart mouth on you, Chen, but fair point. Where did you learn to move like that? Here and there, sir. Here and there does not teach you to counter a speed grapple from someone twice your size. That was muscle memory. That was battlefield adaptation. His eyes narrowed. You have seen real combat. It was not a question. Before Mira could answer, the lights died. Emergency lighting kicked in half a heartbeat later, bathing everything in angry red. An alarm shrieked, not the normal drill alert, but the one that meant this was real. This was happening. This was get to your stations or die trying. Kade was moving before the sound finished registering. He crossed the training hall in 3 strides, his sidearm drawn, a weapon that looked like it could punch holes through starship hulls. Stay behind me. Reeves grabbed a practice baton, which was laughable compared to what Kade carried, but better than nothing. What is happening? Breach, Kade said flatly. Multiple contacts. They are inside the perimeter. How do you know that? Reeves demanded. Kade tapped his temple, where a faint blue light pulsed beneath the skin. Neural link. Military-grade hardware that costs more than most people earned in a lifetime. Central command is dark. That means they hit the main hub first. Standard decapitation strike. They came for her. He did not need to specify who her was. Mira felt something cold and familiar settle into her chest. Fear would come later if there was time for it. Right now, there was only the calculations. Exits, angles, threats. How many seconds until reinforcements? How many seconds until they were surrounded? Who is they? Reeves asked, but his voice had changed. He was looking at Mira differently now, seeing something he had missed before. Does it matter? Mira pulled off her training gloves, flexing her fingers. Kade, route to the armory, blocked. They came in through the lower docks, worked their way up. Between us and heavy weapons, there are approximately 30 hostiles, give or take whoever is still in reserves. Give or take, Mira repeated, and despite everything, she smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was something cold and sharp, like a knife catching light. So your usual precision. I am estimating based on thermal signatures and movement patterns. Apologies for any rounding errors. Kade ejected the magazine from his sidearm, checked it, slapped it back home. North stairwell? Collapsed. I heard the charges blow from here. Then we go through them. It was not a suggestion. Reeves stepped forward, his training baton raised. I am coming with you. Mira shook her head. No. You are going to the cadet barracks. Get everyone locked down. Keep them quiet. These people are not here for a war. They are here for an extraction. If you keep your head down, they will ignore you. I cannot let you go alone. She is not alone, Kade said, his voice colder than vacuum. And neither are they. The door exploded inward, not figuratively. Literally exploded, torn from its hinges by shaped charges that turned metal into shrapnel. 3 figures came through the smoke and chaos, moving with the coordination that marked professional soldiers. They wore no insignia, no identification, just matte black tactical gear and helmets with opaque faceplates. They were aiming for Mira before they fully cleared the doorway. Kade was faster. His first shot took the lead soldier in the throat, finding the millimeter gap between helmet and chest plate. A shot that would have been impossible without augmented reflexes and a targeting system wired directly into his brainstem. The soldier dropped, gurgling, his weapon clattering away. The second soldier got his rifle up. Mira was already moving, diving low, rolling, coming up inside his guard. She drove her elbow into his solar plexus, felt ribs crack under the impact, then stripped the rifle from his hands and used the stock to break his jaw. He went down hard. The third soldier managed to fire. 3 rounds, suppressed. The sound like someone slapping concrete. Reeves tried to dodge, got hit in the shoulder, spun around and collapsed with a grunt of pain and surprise. Kade put 2 rounds through the shooter's faceplate. Gore sprayed. The body hit the floor. Reeves! Mira was beside him in seconds, her hands pressing against the wound. Blood welled between her fingers, hot and slick. Stay with me. Should have stayed in food services, Reeves gasped, his face pale. Never any excitement in food services. Kade, medical kit. We do not have time. Kade was at the door, covering their position, his eyes scanning for more contacts. More coming. 30 seconds. Make time. Mira's voice was steel wrapped in ice. Kade hesitated. On anyone else, it would have been imperceptible. On him, it was like watching a mountain consider whether to stop being a mountain. Then he grabbed a trauma kit from the wall dispenser and tossed it to her. Mira worked fast, her hands steady despite the situation. Pressure bandage, clotting agent, pain suppressors. Reeves grunted as the drugs hit his system, his eyes going glassy. Barracks, Mira told him. Lock the door. Wait for security. Do not be a hero. Little late for that, Reeves muttered. But he nodded. Kade grabbed one of the fallen rifles, checked the magazine, tossed it to Mira. She caught it one-handed, checked the chamber, flipped the safety off. Muscle memory. The kind you earn when firing a weapon becomes as natural as breathing. Ready? Kade asked. No, Mira said honestly. But when has that ever stopped us? They moved into the corridor together, Kade in front, Mira covering his 6. 2 people who had danced this dance so many times they did not need words or signals or commands. They were a unit, a weapon system with 2 components. The academy hallways were chaos. Smoke rolled across the ceiling. Alarms screamed. Somewhere close, someone was shouting orders. Gunfire echoed, sharp cracks that bounced off metal walls. A squad of academy security rounded the corner, weapons raised. Hold fire, Mira shouted. Friendly. The squad leader, a kid who looked barely older than Mira, lowered his rifle. His hands were shaking. Cadet Chen? What is happening? Hostile incursion. Multiple squads. Professional operators. They are here for a specific target. She did not say that the target was her. No time for that revelation. Fall back to the main assembly hall. Establish a defensive perimeter. Do not engage unless fired upon. We should be counter-attacking, the squad leader protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Mira grabbed his shoulder, forced eye contact. Listen to me. You are security, not soldiers. These people are killers. If you try to fight them, you will die. And it will not slow them down. Protect the cadets. That is your job. Now go. Something in her voice or her eyes or the way she held herself convinced him. The squad retreated, moving quickly but in good order. Kade was scanning their surroundings with predator focus. They are hurting us, blocking routes, funneling us toward the east wing. Trap? Obviously. So we go anyway? Kade smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Obviously. They moved through the academy like ghosts, avoiding the main corridors, taking maintenance shafts and service tunnels that Kade seemed to know by heart. Twice they encountered hostile patrols. Twice they left bodies behind. Mira was not sure when she stopped being afraid. Maybe during the second firefight, when muscle memory took over and she stopped thinking and just moved. Maybe before that. Maybe fear was something she had used up 3 years ago and never refilled. The east wing was dark and quiet. Too quiet. They entered a large atrium, 3 stories tall, with balconies overlooking a central floor. Skylights above showed night sky. A fountain in the center, currently offline. Decorative trees and planters. A space designed to look peaceful and academic and safe. Now it looked like an arena. 50 soldiers stood in formation around the perimeter. Not the tactical operators they had been fighting. These were heavier hitters, power armor, shield generators, weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. And standing in the center, next to the fountain, was a woman. She was tall and elegant, with silver hair cut short and eyes the color of old coins. She wore civilian clothing, expensive and tailored, utterly out of place in the chaos. She smiled when she saw Mira. A smile that held genuine warmth and absolutely no humanity. Hello, Iris, the woman said. It has been too long. Mira stopped walking. Kade raised his weapon. The soldiers raised theirs. Nobody fired. "My name," Mira said quietly, "is Mira Chen." The woman laughed. It was a beautiful sound, like music played on broken glass. "Is that what they are calling you now? How quaint. Tell me, does the Academy know who you really are? Does anyone here understand what they have sitting in their lecture halls, taking notes, pretending to be ordinary?" "I'm ordinary." "No, darling. You really are not." The woman gestured to the soldiers surrounding them. "I brought friends. Insurance. I know how protective your watchdog gets." Kade had not lowered his weapon. "Miranda Kane, Vrek's collaborator. Var profiteer. Wanted in 17 systems for crimes against humanity." "All true," Miranda agreed cheerfully. "Also irrelevant. I am not here to debate my resume. I am here to collect what was promised to me." "Nothing was promised," Mira said. "Oh, but it was. 3 years ago. The Blackwell Accords. You remember? When you traded yourself for 40,000 lives? When you agreed to come work for me after your little heroic sacrifice bought those people a few more years of pointless existence?" Miranda's smile widened. "The council gave you 3 years to play student. To pretend. To forget what you really are. Time is up, Iris. Time to come home." Mira felt something crack inside her chest. Something she had been keeping carefully contained. "This is home. This is a waiting room." Miranda's tone sharpened. "You were designed to be a weapon. Trained. Augmented. Perfected. And now you sit in classrooms correcting instructors about battles you personally won under a different name? It is pathetic." Kade took a step forward. "She stays here. And if she does not, you will kill me? You will kill 50 soldiers? You will start a firefight in an academy full of children?" Miranda shook her head. "You are good, Kade. Maybe the best. But you are not that good. Try me." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Miranda's perfect face. Mira put a hand on Kade's arm. "Wait, no, wait," she repeated, firmer this time. "She is right. People will die. Cadets, innocents, everyone here becomes collateral damage." "I do not care," Kade said. And he meant it with terrifying sincerity. "I do." Mira looked at Miranda, and something cold settled into her expression. 3 years. That was the deal. 3 years to be normal, to figure out who I am without the augments and the missions and the killing. You are early. The universe does not care about our schedules, darling. The Vreks are moving again. New incursions, new threats. We need Iris. We need what you can do. What I can do, Mira repeated slowly, is sit in lecture halls and correct instructors. I am very good at it. Commander Vex will confirm. Cute. But we both know that girl is a mask. Underneath, you are still the siege breaker, the ghost of Kresh Minor, the girl who walked into a Vrex hive ship alone and walked out with the coordinates that ended the war. Miranda's voice dropped, became almost gentle. You can pretend to be ordinary, but eventually someone will need saving, and you will remember what you are. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Kade. Really looked at him, at the scars, at the gray eyes that had seen too much, at the way he stood, ready to die for her without hesitation or doubt. You know what I miss most? Mira asked softly. Boring Tuesdays. Hand-to-hand combat with Reeves. Bad food in the commissary. Arguing about tactics with idiots who have never seen combat. I miss being nobody. You were never nobody, Miranda said. Maybe. But I liked pretending. Mira raised her hands. Surrender. Universal gesture. Kade made a sound like a wounded animal. Stand down, Mira told him. That is an order. You cannot order me, Kade said, his voice raw. I do not take orders from anyone except you, and you just gave a stupid order. Then follow it anyway. Please. Something broke in Kade's expression. Something that hurt to watch. But slowly, impossibly, he lowered his weapon. Miranda smiled in triumph. Mira smiled too. It was not the same smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision. The smile of someone who was done pretending. One condition, Mira said. You are not in a position to negotiate, Miranda pointed out. One condition, Mira repeated, her voice absolute. You leave the academy. No casualties. No collateral damage. You pull your people out clean. Everyone goes home. Done, see? I can be reasonable. And then, Mira continued, her tone not changing at all, in exactly 72 hours, you and I meet. Neutral location. No guards, no soldiers. No backup. Just you and me. Miranda's smile faltered. Why? Because I owe you 3 years of service. And I am a woman of my word. But first I owe you something else. What? Mira's smile grew teeth. Revenge. The word hung in the air like a blade. Miranda's expression shifted, calculation replacing confidence. She studied Mira's face, reading something there that made her take an involuntary step back. 72 hours, Miranda finally agreed. Neutral ground. Just us. See you then. Miranda signaled her soldiers. They fell back in perfect formation, withdrawing like a tide, leaving the atrium empty and echoing. Within 2 minutes, they were gone. Extraction ships lifted off from the lower docks, running lights disappearing into the night sky. Kade grabbed Mira's shoulders. What did you just do? Bought time. You agreed to meet a war criminal alone, without backup, without protection. I did. She will kill you. Mira looked at him, and her eyes held something ancient and cold and absolutely certain. No, she will not. Because in 72 hours, I stopped pretending. I stopped being Mira Chen, ordinary cadet. I remember who I was, who I am, what I can do when nobody is watching and the rules stop applying. Understanding dawned slowly across Kade's face. Iris. Yes. You are going to kill her. Yes. I cannot let you do that alone. Mira reached up, touched his scarred face gently. You have spent 3 years guarding me, protecting me, standing watch while I played normal. Thank you. But some things I have to do myself. Why? Because she took 40,000 lives hostage and used them to own me. Because she thinks I am a weapon she can point at her enemies. Because she is right, and I hate that she is right. And before I go back to being what she needs, I am going to teach her exactly what kind of monster she created. Kade was silent for a long time. Then impossibly he laughed. It was a rough sound, unpracticed, genuine. I have missed you. I have been right here. No, Mira Chen has been here. But Iris, she has been sleeping. He stepped back, came to attention, saluted her like she was still his commanding officer. Permission to accompany you anyway, even though you will tell me no. Denied. Figured. They walked back through the academy together. Emergency crews were arriving, securing the building, treating the wounded. Reeves was being loaded into a medical transport, still conscious, still cursing. He caught Mira's eye and nodded once. Respect. By morning, there would be investigations, questions, inquiries into who Cadet Mira Chen really was and why Black Ops soldiers had tried to kidnap her from a training facility. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, Mira went back to her quarters. She sat on her bunk. She thought about boring Tuesdays and bad coffee and instructors who taught tactics they had never used. She thought about who she had been, who she was going to be again. Just for a little while, just long enough to remind Miranda, Kane, that some debts get paid in blood. Kade stood guard outside her door, as he always did, as he always would. And somewhere in the night, Miranda Kane started counting down 72 hours. She should have run. But people who profit from wars never believe the weapons they created will turn on them. Not until it is far, far too late. Like and subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments how you liked this story.